Start. Yeah. Call the meeting to order.
I mean, we come out of executive session.
All in favor, come out of executive session?
Yeah, let's call the budget committee meeting to order.
We're gonna hold off on things like.
Oh.
We're gonna take care of a couple select board meetings.
Oh, okay.
First.
Sure.
You know,
Don, who did
I
the
don't.
executive?
Bob,
Yes,
Bob Butler and Mike Mike Thomas.
Adjustment to the agenda.
Take the adjustments. I move we adjust the agenda to move the presentations up after the Pledge of Allegiance.
Second. This time, we'll have our pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to make those, get the presentations move forward. As we're gonna be following on with a budget meeting here. It's a continuation of a budget meeting. Folks, probably want to move on. Our first presentation, we have, it's like Mr. Dylan Harvey, gonna talk about the Eagle Scout project.
Ready? Want me to stand up here?
Yes.
Sure.
Alright. Name's Dylan Harvey. I'm from Waldeboro, Maine. I've noticed, especially last year, there was a clamor that had passed away up in the river. And it was right around that time there that I decided something needed to be done for a memorial for them. So my proposal was down at the Dutch Neck Landing to take a small section of land out of the way of all the clamors and everyone using the boat landing, where they could see a memorial for all the mariners that were lost in the Waldeboro River.
They all had copies of your proposal.
All right.
This your main project for your Eagle Scout?
Yes.
award?
Dylan, can you just tell us a little bit about what it's taken you to get to this point in your scouting career?
Years. A lot of commitment, a lot of planning. A lot of hard work, for sure. Been doing this since I was in kindergarten, so it's been a while.
And what's your favorite part of it?
Tough question to answer. Probably the ability to just be yourself in a group full of people like you. Probably be my answer.
Great answer.
Yeah.
And John Daigle and Will can help with the placement of where it can go. I know you had suggestions and our Public Works Department could be very helpful to you.
This was gonna be a large boulder, if I recall, with a symbol on top representing people who work on the water.
It was going to be a large boulder with a kind of garden bed built around it.
Yeah,
With a bronze plaque on top of the boulder. Engraved with a quote.
have you chosen the quote?
There's a couple that I'm kind of flip-flopping back and forth between.
What do they
The main one I'm working on right now is a poem. I can't remember the author. It's called The Price of Fish. Price of fish is very dear. 200 men were lost last year. The price of fish is very dear. It's not the price of the fish, it's the price of the souls that are lost to catch the fish. Which is
Very
the
good.
main emphasis.
Yep.
The other one was a scripture from
Book of Psalms.
Psalm.
after we approve this, what's your next step? When you plan on getting this done?
Hopefully the summer. Sometime over the summer. I have to go in front of a Eagle Select Board, have this approved in front of them after this.
It's an extensive proposal. You put a lot of work into that. You really
Yeah.
did. I think it's a very fitting memorial. Good idea.
Especially since we lost somebody last year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not the first.
It's not the first.
Yeah. I'd make a motion, we approve the project and give the support, authorize our DPW to support it.
Second,
Motion and seconding, any other discussion? All in favor? No, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
We'll look forward to as you. We definitely want to get the photographs and
I do have a couple photographs in here if you'd like.
not some when you get it done, I want you to stand.
Oh, okay.
Invite
county news too.
the Lincoln County News, have everybody there for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And feel free at any moment when you want to go, don't feel like you have to sit through the next 3 hours.
Next,
27 seconds.
Mike Capico, conference of the James Walk? Yeah. You prepared for that?
I'm so happy to have a larger audience this evening.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm here to ask the select board's permission to okay me giving a public free walk around the Sylvania site as part of the Jane's Walk program, which is offered or at least sponsored by Maine Preservation, nonprofit organization in Maine. The Jane's Walk program is inspired by Jane Jacobs, the famous urbanist who was instrumental in our understanding of what made cities and neighborhoods strong. And a Jane's Walk is a walk around your neighborhood to show its residents or interested community members about the history and general design ideas that have informed its use and development over time. And I thought that it would be good to pull together some of the historical research I've been doing about the Sylvania and Hofstas site and propose to offer a walk as part of this Jane's Walk program to introduce people who live in Waldoboro, but anyone else to learn more about the Sylvania site because of the development of the park and various other programs that may happen there. This is a one-day event. All the Jane's Walks across Maine happen on May 4th, Saturday. And I can do it numerous times, although most people just offer their tour once, but possibly I would offer it twice because we have numerous constituencies, I think, beyond just people interested in this program who would want to learn more about the site. Again, knowing what we're trying to do with it as a community. And lastly, it would be a 90-minute walk. And we would be on the top of the concrete pad. And then we would walk through the parking lot and also through the woods, but only on the area that has already been marked out for the coming trail system. So those would be the 3 locations and probably right in front of the Hofstas house or right to the side of the Hofstas house. So it wouldn't be tramping through the woods. And then in closing, before I entertain all of your questions, I would just like to read my 1-paragraph description of the talk, which is what would be advertised by Maine Preservation along with the, 70, 100 other walks around Maine. How does history help us imagine new beginnings in Waldoboro? Join us for a walk around the abandoned Sylvania factory lot, adjacent Hofstas house, and the woods and river that border them. We'll consider how this particular spot in town helped support economies of farming, fishing, and shipbuilding, as well as how it saw power struggles play out between Protestant sects, pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions in America, England and America at large, and the area's native inhabitants and its earliest colonial settlers. It all happened in this one place, whether in the form of a hatchet through a skull, a visit by President John Adams, or slaves escaping from the South. Here lived working-class families next to professional and governmental elites. A farm abutted a country estate. Worry over land and money neighbored the town's 4th of July recreation. The proximity of difference accentuated political division, but also political change. Industry diverged and converged around shoes over 150 years apart. And while the people polluted the land, they also stewarded it. We'll follow their lives and feelings as they cross and converge in this one space of time. Wear comfortable footwear for a walk in the woods. Thank you.
I would add tick protection also.
Excellent suggestion. So I have to ask for your permission because it's public land before it can be hosted or offered.
I got a question for you, Mike. Have we ever had a James Walk in this particular area that you know of?
I
I've
don't-
never heard of it.
I don't know. I don't think so, only because I believe the program is maybe 1 or 2 years old.
Any other questions from the board? How many people do you expect?
That is an excellent question. If I get the word out as I plan, I would like to do 2 tours of 10 to 15 people each. Of course, with these things, everyone says they're interested in, but 3 people show up. But I feel like there's these built-in constituencies like the Sylvania Committee, and the Historical Society, that I can almost guarantee at least 10 people. And I feel that once I get to 15 people, it's too many people for one 90-minute tour with just me as a guide, which is why I want to offer 2 during the day and aim for about 15 people each.
I'll make a motion that we authorize this tour on our property at Sylvania.
Motion made, second. Made and seconded, any other discussion? All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Budget committee, you can call your committee to order.
As long as there's no busy signal, we'll call meeting to order.
All right, now we joint session of the select board and the budget committee. Move on and talk a little bit about the revenue.
I'm just waiting for Abden to call in. He wanted to be a part of this. Abden Simmons is not with us this evening in person because he is still in meetings in Augusta, but he's calling in right now. Can you hear us? I can hear you, but I can hear some lady yelling behind you. Okay. All right. Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay.
Okay. So the reason I called you back is that at our meeting, oh geez, we've been meeting so much.
Last
Thursday, last Tuesday, right? Last Tuesday, we discussed where we ended up with our increase, and it was 6.17%, I believe. There was some confusion because the meeting prior to that on Thursday, we had talked about using 203,000 of proceeds from the Friendship Street School to be moved to paving, which could essentially reduce the tax burden to the residents. That number, that 203,000, some people thought was in that 6.17%. And and some people did not think that number was in that 6.17%. It was not. That 203,000 was not accounted for. And if we add that 203,000 as was suggested a week and a half ago at our Thursday meeting, that would reduce the tax burden down to reduce it to the budget by, we'd be under zero by 1/3%. Peg, if you want to hand out those.
Sure.
So I didn't want anybody thinking that that 203,000 was in the sheet that we handed out last Tuesday night. So with that 203,000, we could achieve the 0% increase.
Right.
And I just wanted everybody to be very aware of that.
Thank you.
And technically, for this to be done, it would be a separate question on the warrant. And it would require a vote of just the select board. Because it's moving money from one capital line item to another capital line item, but we would anticipate it in the revenue.
You want to understand that? Essentially what it's telling us is we come in zero increase. What?
Well, you come in technically under
Under, little under,
Let's give him back.
0.31%.
a little under.
Which we're still at the 90-day for the fund balance.
This doesn't affect
Doesn't
fund
affect-
balance. What we are doing is, we are asking the voters to approve the moving of capital reserve funds from the sale of Friendship Street School line item to our paving line item within the capital budget.
And it doesn't affect the mill rate.
And it does not affect the mill rate at all.
Which is what we were trying to achieve, right? By
Correct.
utilizing some fund balance as well.
So what you'll see reflected is, in the budget essentially is, we take out 203,000 out of the paving.
Bob?
My personal feeling is I'd rather use that 203,000 to leverage grant opportunities instead of spending it. We were very happy with the 6.17% increase the last time we met. At least most of us were, that was my feeling. Maybe I misunderstood, but I feel we have an opportunity here to use a resource that has been part of our capital account structure for a while. Until compelled to use it last year. Every time we get a grant for something, question is, well, do we have a match? And then the question is, well, if we have a match, how are we getting the money? And if we like the project, we're gonna have to raise people's taxes to make that match. If we put this money aside and keep it the way we have it now, we have funding that we don't have to use to raise taxes if we're gonna make a match with our grant money. It's there. And I think we're squandering an opportunity to by using it the way that's been suggested. I think it's nice to have zero tax increase. Like, if anybody that would be in favor of that, but we need to look at the future as well. And this has an impact on future possibilities, opportunities the town could have and wouldn't without raising taxes. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Well, you're right, we did sit around here 10 days ago and 6.17 or whatever, because we thought that was the bottom line, that as low as we could go. Here we have the opportunity to be in at zero. Because like I said last meeting is, the county is not gonna be at zero, they're at 9%, and the school's at least 10% increase. it'd be nice for the town to be able to say that we're at zero, a little bit less than zero increase on our taxes. And I appreciate the fact that it is the money that we have for a grant. What grant we're talking about could be a number of things. However, we live for the here and now, and we get folks that do not want to see any increase on their taxes, but they are going to see an increase because of the county and the school. But it'd be nice for the town to be able to say, we came in flat, that's because of the efforts of everyone in the room.
It would be nice to say we're flat, but we should keep in mind next year too. And we have a significant capital expenditure. Likely. Maybe not next year, but at some point for a fire truck. And just to refresh everyone. What is the current status of the paving, capital paving budget? Were we gonna do the whole?
We're
Yeah.
going to do
0.5 million.
everything.
Okay, so we didn't take
You didn't.
two
take-
hundred and thirty out of that?
No.
Okay, I thought that's what you said, and
We did not take any money out. You guys said no to that.
We're still doing. the
Yeah.
15
You're
months.
doing.
I think
15
that
months.
is a really good deal. Because of the discount.
But that's
So-
with the 6.1%
Right.
increase. What we had
Right.
talked about that Thursday was taking the 203,000 and taking that number down.
Yeah, and I am not opposed to that idea. The COLA for this year is 3 point something,
I think it was 3.2.
3.2. So that would be about half of our 6 point, whatever it is. So I would propose if people want to use this money that's there to reduce taxes, that we maybe use half of it to bring down the increase to the COLA.
Using that COLA figure is all well and good, but if you're not gonna be able to, if you're just gonna take that COLA money and put it towards the taxes. COLA cost of living is for groceries, fuel, all the other stuff these people are gonna need on social security. We add that to their taxes, we get a chance to come in zero. Go to zero. And I appreciate next year, you say we do it, we could have a big capital expense, we could.
Yeah.
We could.
Well, also in the, I'm not gonna give a history lesson, but years ago, we had a very well apportioned capital budget and we ended up keeping taxes low to make people happy and our capital budget came in serious disarray. So I'm concerned that this is in that direction.
I don't necessarily disagree with what we do right now. I view that as a short-term gain. Either splitting this into a partial tax lowering and something to fund grants is going to net us more money back. There's going to be a longer-term benefit. I prefer to think in those terms. What can we do that's going to benefit people of Waldeboro for a longer period of time? We're talking about a one-time feel-good moment of, hey, we got this to 3% or we got this to 0. Or, hey, we have this toolbox now to maybe go after some grants for these various projects we have. There's a lot of different needs in this town, for infrastructure especially, that right now we have a much harder time meeting. And so I guess I really just put that question out there. A short-term benefit, or do you want to have some longer-term vision?
I think the short-term benefit is a lot of the reason why this town finds itself and all towns find themselves in the situations they're in. You know, I mean, I live on a fixed income. The last thing in the world I want to see is to have my taxes go up or anything else go up. However, I'd rather have them go up 3 or 5% this year than 15% next year, because we didn't plan, or we missed out on a $3 million grant because we couldn't come up with $150,000 or $300,000 for our share of it or something. Now, I know we were all patting ourselves on the back last week at 6%. Well, we ought to be able to pat ourselves on the back for 3%. So split it, save some, use some. I mean, what people should do. I do live on a fixed income. I mean, it's fixed because of my personal budget. You know, I mean, I have resources, but I don't use them because I force myself to live on my budget. You know, and if I get a windfall, like I get a check from the town of Waldeboro for going to a fire or something, well, fine, that's great. But I don't count that as my income, you know, this is what I have, this is what I use. It's great, we got a couple of $100,000, but let's use half of it and save half of it.
I'm just thinking about the people that are on fixed incomes, you know, some people getting less than $1,000 a month. And they're not worried about infrastructure, and they don't really care whether the road is bumpy or not, when all of the bread is $4. I would think using that fund balance from.
I think we've been quite conservative. We've kept our fund balance at 90 days. Our target is 60. So we've been good and we have that extra and we'll have more that will grow. And so I think that was a good thing. So we'll may have extra on that. And I don't know that it's really short term. I think the goodwill towards the town creates support for town government. And that's long-term. We don't always have support for town government here. And taxes is one of they're one of the reasons. So I mean, I can see an argument on all different points. But I don't think that one option is a short term necessarily. And I think we have a number of people who would not think that having grant money was important to them. I certainly understand that, but that's at a different level, and that's further down the road. That's not, it's not concrete. It's not right there for you. So I think that I don't know. I think it's nice with the year that our taxes went down ever so slightly was a wonderful year. I heard lots of comments about that. And that's what people hear, are taxes. They don't hear all the stuff that we go into for the taxes. They're not thinking in those terms. They're thinking of their bill. So I think we're fortunate that we have some options here. Good. I mean, I think that speaks well for the town. So maybe a difference on an intellectual thought or on an emotional thought. And I think
I don't, just as a question. Having that money, that $230,000 available for funding capital projects. Is there another potential source of funding for capital projects from the unrestricted fund balance? Is that another pool of money that we could dip into if we needed to get a grant?
Yes.
I didn't get enough.
Well, that reinforces my feeling that we should use it for great needs. That a motion discussion. I'll make it a motion.
Motion on the floor to use that 203,000 towards the capital. Any second from the select board?
Has happened.
That's the second. Any more discussion?
There is a capital project on the horizon. And it's an important one for this town that we've been talking about for years. And have done nothing about. Because the opportunity hasn't been there. And this has happened very recently. The opportunity is there now, potentially, and Max will talk about it later, I think. But the reason I made that suggestion to keep it available to leverage is because in September, I mean, we could vote on this in November, and if we can do that, that would be great. If we don't have time to vote on it in November, we have to vote on this. If we're gonna use it for that project, we have to vote in June. Correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but I think that's the case.
What's the project?
The project is to bring broadband to every single home in Waldeboro. It's a multi-town project, and Max is far better placed to speak to this than I am. But it brings broadband, fiber optic broadband to every single home in Waldeboro. This is a major multi-billion-dollar company that owns most of the poles in this town. So economically, you're putting in fiber optic, you've got to pay what's called make ready to use the pole that you don't own. Well, that brings the cost of this project way down because the company that would be doing this owns the poles, or a lot of them. There are other towns in Lincoln County that are involved in this as well, not just Waldeboro. So I think the project addresses, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, 7 or 8 towns in Lincoln County. So it's, yeah, it's become time sensitive. And if we use the money to keep our taxes at 0 for this year, and we decide not to do this, that's fine. That's people's choice. But we're missing a major opportunity to move forward and to give everybody in town. We have lots of people in town who don't have access or who are underserved. And it's not fair to them that they are in that position. So it's a fairness issue as well. And I would argue that that money we have set aside from the sale of Friendship Street School would serve the town far more effectively long-term than a one-year fix on a tax reduction. I think that's the real question we need to answer tonight. It's still going to go to the voters. And they're going to have to approve the use of that money for this fiber optic project. But the news is, and I think we got it today, this project is a go. We have a certain amount we have to put in to support it as a town. And the end result is that we all get connected, everybody, not just some of us, but all of us get connected. 2,700 homes, our addresses in Waldeboro benefit from this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 2,700. So, yeah, I'm in favor of holding this money aside and not jumping at the bit at this point, but giving this other option an opportunity. And there will be other ones that come down the road, but giving it a chance to see whether or not it's something the town wants to do.
But that money doesn't cover the full buy-in.
No, it doesn't. We have other non-tax related sources available to us. One of which is fund balance, which Jan has pointed out. Another of which is the TIF, which has been set aside for capital projects. This would qualify for that.
Should I fill in the budget committee member? Because I don't know who is even aware of the broadband.
I think a history lessons in.
Yeah,
So I think that's the chairman's
Yeah,
decision.
just make a quick overall view of the broadband, because
yeah, I feel I just want to give a bit of history because Bob's talking about broadband and all this and that, and I know some discussion has happened, but I don't think everyone who's hearing this here or online is aware of it. So the county has been working with Consolidated to work on a county-wide project to do fiber to the home. And they're using the county ARPA funds that were given during COVID. And they're going to be applying for Maine Connectivity Authority grant. Ruben, you sent me a, well, PEM grant that's gonna be available in September. And all the county has asked is that if we are interested in being included, we would provide, I think it's about $316,000 as a local match so that it can come through come through here and serve the 2,700 residents or so. And that's the short history of it. I'm going really short history right here.
My concern is we have to make a decision tonight on what's gonna go on the ballot next week, right, Dan? We have to make a decision tonight. Does this absolutely positively have to be made a decision tonight to use that, take that $302?
$360.
300 and change and hold it set aside, but we could make a decision tonight to put it on the ballot, which is with the motion.
What I was told by Evan was that July 1st is when we need to know, they need to know if we're actually committing something to this, and September 1st is when they are applying to the state. So we can't really just wait until November. Sorry, Mike has a question.
So we could put it in a form of a question, because who in the town, do we know what percentage of the town want the broadband? No, we don't know that.
I can take a guess.
What's the benefit of broadband versus what I have right now?
I mean, I'd probably have to do a forum to go over the differences with the provider and everything right now.
Yeah.
It's different speeds, it's
Yeah.
based on what everyone has. Right now, I can't talk about a whole thing. I know everyone can.
I'd be willing to bet that majority of residents and taxpayers will be happy to have a lower tax bill. Like,
Yeah, there are already two broadband suppliers, at least two broadband suppliers, LCI and Spectrum. They're losers because they'll lose subscribers.
Mhm.
I don't know who this entity is that that owns the poles. I assume it's CMP. I didn't know they were getting into the broadband business.
Consolidated.
Consolidated.
Yeah.
They own the poles. We have no idea what the monthly cost is gonna be at this point. We don't know whether it's $500 or $50. We're operating on a giant leap of faith that broadband is gonna be worth the price that they're gonna charge. What is the price they're gonna charge?
Well, because this would be the Fidium network that they'd be joining in on. It's a national standard, so the gigabyte service, that's the one they do nationally. It starts at $70 for the first 2 years, and then it would go up to 80. I think the lowest price was 35.
35, 55, and 85 is there.
Yes, and the 35 was half a gig or 300.
I think it's 300 megs both ways.
300 megabits per second at $25 a month.
it's a lot of, excuse me.
I know,
There's a lot of information going around here. For the first time, we're hearing it as a group. I know I sat in a quick
Right.
meeting here a couple weeks ago.
I'm only just talking to Ruben on that because he knows the Fidium fiber prices right off the top of his head.
So. Yeah, go ahead.
Ruben, you said it was 3 megs,
300.
300 megs, but yeah, at what, $35? All right, well, there is a $30 a month savings for me. Right now, I'm paying 65 for 300.
And you're probably on a promo rate.
Yeah, well, no, I got off that. All right, so, but now you're talking fiber optic.
Mhm.
So you're talking a gig, maybe?
The gigabyte would be $70.
That's what I'm paying now for 300 meg. So there's, there already I'm saving, you know.
And that's,
Just to point it out, you know,
That's just a 2-year, so I have Fidium at my camp, $35 worth, but it's only for a couple years that it's.
first two, and then I think they go up about $10 after the second year. And this is again why I said we,
More than what I pay here.
and again, this is why I say we need a more forum type thing,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
prices could
Yeah.
be compared and everything.
Bill, you had a question?
No, I just had a comment, and it's got nothing to do with this internet and gigs and megs and all that stuff. I think probably I'm all for a zero or under, but I guess I would consider doing a half, 100,000. To go towards this budget, 100,000 for keeping the capital. That's just a comment. I don't want people to get tied up on the capital and $1 million fire trucks. I'm not gonna go down that road, but there's a lot of things to be discussed when it comes to that certain capital. So I would ask Peg, what would this be the final? What would that take it if it was 100,000?
Hold on, we got a motion on the floor. from the select board. We have to-
Well, I'll end on that. I'll end on this. I would request that the selectmen reconsider and split it.
I just want to point out, no matter what you do with the 203,000. You still got to come up with 316. For the buy-in for the broadband that we haven't even presented to the public. This is the first time the public's hearing about that, and I just. This is the very first time, I mean,
too.
I found out about this at 10:30 this morning, so. I just want everybody to be really clear on this. We had a meeting with a gentleman from Lincoln County who came to us and said, we have this potential. This was a couple weeks ago, but we're not gonna really know anything until. They had a meeting yesterday. This is very new information, so I just want everybody to understand that this isn't. We found out about it at 10:30 this morning that it was approved, or I don't even know, has it been approved or it would be looked upon favorably?
That the project can go forward,
Yeah.
that it's an eligible project that can go forward. That was the big question.
Okay. So we've not bought into this prior, we've not committed to this. We were not on the ground floor of this. We pursued something totally different and had a broadband study done. And I understand, but we haven't even talked about that with the public. So I just, for transparency's sake, this is, I'm sitting here, it's 268, He's saying, I just want everybody to understand that 203,000 isn't going to pay the full bill, and you're still gonna have to find the other money for this. This one, and we have not vetted this or presented this to the public. This is the first time people are gonna be hearing about this.
Any more discussion from the select board? Val? No.
Just to be clear, what is the timeline where we would have to come up? If all this goes ahead, would we have to come up with a 300, whatever, 1,000 in September? Do this, or you had said we can't wait till November?
From the email I got, July 1st is when we'd have to show that we'd have the money ready, and September 1st is when we're putting in the application.
All right.
Or the county is putting in the application.
And what would happen if we didn't have the cash available until, say, after November?
You
Is that
can't.
gonna,
It's not.
it's gonna
You
scuttle the
have to
project.
have, we would have to have this question on the June
June
warrant.
ballot, okay.
So if you got this news tomorrow, it wouldn't affect what we're doing today.
Right.
It's a matter of timing that,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, what you could do, there's a couple of things you could do. So if do you want to hear about about options or? I mean.
Am I sitting back down?
Pat, sit down.
I got a motion on the floor. Yes.
It would be my preference to split it as well.
We don't have a second on Mike's motion.
There's a
Abden
second.
was-
There is a
Abden- Abden
Oh,
was-
Abden, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
But you have another option too. You could finance that 320,000. And pay that off through the TIF, which also would have no effect on the taxes. Just saying.
It brings me back to my initial point. Let's not spend capital we have before we know what the options are. We were very happy at 6.17%. Why has that changed all of a sudden? Because we have an emotional attachment to zero. That's a very unusual reason to change. When you logically look at a situation where you have funding available. For not necessarily the broadband project, there may be other ones. But the reaction is the same. I think you need to look at this not emotionally, but look at it rationally. We have an opportunity here. We need to spend the time looking at it and considering it. Rather than grab at straws and say, well, we could finance it this way or do this.
Well, I don't think that's grabbing at straws. I think that it's incumbent that everybody in the
Sorry,
room.
Judy, I have the floor, may I, please? And I'll defer to you in just a moment, but I don't think we need to act precipitously here. I think we need to take our time and leave things where they are. We were happy with them a week ago. That doesn't have to change. I'm very happy with them now. And see where this takes us. That's just the point I'd like.
I think our goal was, I think we were working towards our goal. My feeling was, we had a goal of 0. We worked hard to get there. We weren't able to quite make it. Now we have an opportunity to reach that goal that we had. That's my understanding.
So, Mike,
Well,
And I
you meant-
agree. I mean, sorry about that, but I wasn't happy with 6%. I'm thinking about the taxpayers that are just struggling and getting by every day just to make ends meet. And here we're gonna hit them with a 19% increase just from the county, probably the school, might be more than that. And my thought is we're at 90 days on the fund balance. I was totally willing to go below that to 87 to get us to 0. But that wasn't a discussion on the table. So that's all I had.
The very word precipitous is defined by hearing about something tonight and having to make a major decision. This is just too short a period of time for us to be reserving capital funds for something that we know very, very little about.
Julie? Floor is yours.
My point was that I don't want anybody leaving here and not hearing every scenario that in the 8 hours I've had to think about this that you get. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to you
no,
both,
no,
but
didn't take it that way. You should be sorry.
but I'm not grabbing at straws. I'm not, I just want everybody to be well informed and I'm trying to provide options because I did not sense that everybody was happy with the 6.17%. It certainly wasn't the impression I got leaving here that night, nor the next day or the day after that. So, that's why we're back here because the 203,000 wasn't in the budget. That would have gotten us to 0 that everybody, what I felt a majority of people wanted. What I'm trying to say about the financing for a potential project is if there is a potential project, whether it be broadband or if some other amazing thing happens and we can need a match that would fit within the TIF funds, we have the ability to borrow that money and then pay it off with the TIF fund. Am I correct, Max, in that?
Yep.
So, I just want people to understand that that's an option. I'm not saying that's what we should do. I'm not saying that's what we shouldn't do, but we've got about our balance in the TIF right now.
130.
130,000 in the TIF. So, you know, if we had to borrow money, we could borrow money. And like I said, repay it back. It's just a way that everybody gets another option. That's,
It's not an either or.
it's not I don't.
We have other alternatives
I
to
don't think
do
it's,
both.
there's never, I try to not say it's not, this is the end game. I understand where Bob's coming from, but I also understand where we do live in a community that we do have to be very careful about what we do to our residents. And that was what I was conveying at our last meeting about, and I used the fire truck as an example. You know, we have to be thoughtful, you know, and we do have to think ahead. Buying $3 million fire trucks in 11 years is a lot to ask of our residents. Tonight, asking everybody to support something that this is the first time that they've heard about, it doesn't. I think we didn't have a choice. Like, it would have been great if we found this out three weeks ago, you know, 3 months ago. But this is where we're at. I just want everybody to have the options and be able to make an informed decision. I'm not saying one's a better idea than the other. I'm just saying there are options and it's not an either or an all or nothing.
Go ahead.
When everyone thinks, you think that, you know, some people were happy with the 6%, I definitely was not happy about the 6%. But we set a goal, and I thought we could achieve it. Go 0%. I think we ought to explore that 8 hours.
None, all in favor of holding, taking that capital and moving it to the highway fund? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Unless Val had something else he wanted to chat about.
Oh, you did?
He did. He sent me an email.
I don't actually know much about it. But it has to do with the EMS revenue projections
Okay.
that you sent to John. Right?
No, you had asked me if we could have a conversation.
Oh, that.
John had asked that I hand that out, which I did to everybody. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know. John had asked that I hand it out. Are we discussing something? Did you want to discuss something?
I guess I'm sorry, you had another topic you wanted to talk about?
We're looking at this paper here, so.
Okay.
Look at it.
So I just thought that, since this is resolved, if you could just explain what this is about. If you like, I'll preface how it came about.
Whatever you would like.
So I asked a question based on, I look at numbers and to me, they tell a story, and I looked at the trend of budget versus actual on the EMS revenue, and it didn't, something just didn't work for me. So I asked to see the EMS receivables. And we had the discussion that in medical billing, that receivables are not what we would see in a normal commercial business. They take quite some time. And it took, so it brought to light that there was an issue with the receivables. Is that
No, I don't think there's an issue with the receivables. It's an issue in the report that I had to provide that doesn't have names. Is an ongoing report.
Okay, so I guess the question would be that we have a revised receivable report and
Right.
the question that I would like to ask is, what numbers was the budgeting based on?
The numbers were, so you mean as far as what our revenue was based on?
Projected revenue.
So we take our revenue from last year. And then we base that number on, and Peg can bring up.
It's a lot of information to calculate. Emergency, the calculate number of calls, and then there's a bonus. I wish Derek was there. He was just there.
He was just here.
Yeah, no, I get
11%
that.
of uncollectibles, 24% of the contractual allowance. That figure itself is a negative 374,000. So I wish I had the details to share.
But I guess the question, what was alerting me was every year it's been projected higher than actual. Meaning the actual revenue has been less than the projected consistent.
No, so.
2023 numbers, that is.
and I don't know where we stand, we're now a couple of months into this, but I don't mean to belay that, I don't mean to belay this. This is not something that's really, what's important is that you've got a clean report from your provider now, which is
Right, I don't
will
think
probably
it,
provide better planning.
On the
In the
page
future.
53 in the EMS, and we did 23 budget and 23 actual, so the EMS budget is 945,000 and change, but the actual was over $1 million.
Right,
And then for
okay,
24, that's the year we're in right now.
right,
So we're way past the halfway point, which is we're around 6-7 months in when we're with budget time.
yeah.
And I think we're gonna hit it again.
Oh, great, okay.
Yeah.
Look at the budget
Alright,
for
okay.
the actual.
So the total
pages.
Yeah.
53.
right, so these numbers here are currently, so if you were to look at the bottom numbers,
Yeah.
so two things, at ComStart, that's our actual billing company. When it gets to FFR means it's went into collections.
All right, so that is, a percentage of that is not gonna be collected, correct?
A percentage probably won't be, and it depends what month it is, and
Right.
that's where it gets complicated,
Yeah.
but the current month at the time, which would have been
Yeah.
February, we billed out $85,726.15. From 31 to 60 days, $61,789 was outstanding. From 61 to 90, there was $34,502 outstanding.
Yeah.
And then 91 to 120 was $7,228.30. And then they went up to 2023. So there is a little bit of a difference there. They went to years then, so that will show you what is outstanding for any billing that was outstanding from 2023 and 2022.
Yeah. So what's great is that you've got, so that they can now provide you with a much cleaner look.
They can provide us with technically a cleaner look, yes. If we're gonna go back to 23 and 22. Now,
As-
if something comes back in though, so like, I'll just.
Right, but compared to the original,
Right,
on February 7th, you pretty much didn't have a clue at what.
no, we had, actually,
Yeah.
I would not agree with that statement.
I'm sorry, that's
You
my,
asked,
that's
you
my lack of
asked
tact.
for a report
Yeah.
that was generated, because I can't give out names.
Yeah.
So it went back to when they started billing for us. And it didn't include, in there, it included what was called, and I explained it in the email, it was called archive data.
But that
That was really the write-offs.
right, that included, right,
It
which is really
included
strange.
it included archive data.
Yeah, which is really strange, but that's
Well,
just the way it is.
But I I think part of it is what they've been used to getting versus so I see a different report. I see what their endings are, but it has everybody's name in it. I do not typically get this report. So when it was provided to you by Peg, I see a different report. So that was why I even said to you, I need to check that. So this is with no names on it, and this is exactly what's outstanding, and it includes all the write-offs. Now, we write off after 2 years. So, and I attached a policy, and I can send that to everybody what our billing policy is. So I wanted to also point out, like, if you'll see this in the FFR, there's in 2021, $1,565.01 appearance of 2021, which technically is written off. That is a bill that somebody finally decided to pay from 2021. So that comes back in to FFR. So then we show that even though that's a write-off, they're still making payments on that. So probably when I run this for the month ending March, you'll see less than 1565.01. Does that make sense to you, John?
Oh, yeah, absolutely makes sense. It's interesting. So FFR is still chasing after the archive accounts, which, I mean, it's not bad for us. It's just.
I think this is one that is the $5 one that pays the $5 every month.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I'm talking about the delta. It's from my standpoint, I'm satisfied.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because I mean, I
because-
think I originally said we run about a $400,000 outstanding at any moment.
I did not see that, but.
I think I said that at our one meeting. I said,
Yeah.
normally it's about 400,000 and I mean, we're 15 under that.
Right,
You're at what? I'm sorry.
Oh, I just was telling him, look, at about 3 on here, roughly 3 on.
Well, it should be 385, 943, 39 if you add your Comstar and your
FFR,
And your
which
FFR.
is what they're chasing for
what they're
collection,
chasing.
which is.
Which is technically what's truly right now outstanding and hasn't been written off.
Right. Which
Okay.
is, yeah, great,
Are
thank you.
are
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
Good. Okay, I have to ask, is there anything with this new information or new way of presenting that would change your projections for the revenue for this coming year?
No, because
Okay.
we base it on what we got like I said, it's based on the number of calls. So every year, if Derek sees a downturn, say we know Warren and what to expect from Warren, how many medic intercepts we have. If he sees a downturn in that this year, he will decrease the number of calls and anticipate less money for that. If he sees that we're answering more calls, say in Jefferson, we will know because we'll do almost like a dummy invoice to them based on the number of calls if he's seeing an increase. And that's really how we put together the budget.
Okay.
It's based on last year's call volume. Because like we said, that could fluctuate. If it goes down, then the revenue would go down. Even if we increase the rates, like Derek had done, that was just a few months ago, we increased the rates. It doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to pay the increased rate or that Medicare is going to pay that rate. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I think, like Peg said, I think we anticipate 11% uncollectible. And when we did our last analysis of it, we were right around 11%. Based like on a monthly of what we bill out and try to extrapolate.
Okay. Thank you.
But there was something else you asked.
The other issue that we briefly discussed at the previous meeting was to include a written summary or explanation of some of the adjustments we made in the budget, or perhaps explaining our rationale for, say, the paving capital expenditure, why we brought it up to the figure we did. And I think that's a useful thing. I wasn't clear where that would end up, though. It wouldn't be on the ballot.
It's in the voter guide that
Voter-
In the voter.
Pam provides.
Okay. Yeah, so people would have a chance to read it and hopefully would get something out of it. And if I am going to be responsible for it, I would love to have other people's input in what they feel are important points in this year's budget, things that we discussed that either have significant increases and why that is the case, or where we save some money and how and why. So we're all here now, or almost all here now. If people are up for that, I would entertain some tossing out, or is there some other way that we could do this?
I think we left that meeting that if anybody had anything they wanted to share, we're supposed to be emailing you. And I don't think this would be the time to tie up the selectmen's meeting. We should be emailing you like.
Well,
we
they're
left-
kind of
that's why
part
I
of this
left it.
too.
Yeah, yes, we do, but we have a select board meeting we gotta get through
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
I don't think.
I'm-
that's what
I'm
we get
afraid
at
that-
10 o'clock.
Taking the initiative to actually write something down and email might make
Well,
the hill
email it
higher.
here, right?
If you could email me, I also
Right.
suggested that maybe you guys come up with a subcommittee.
Would anyone be
Volunteers.
interested in one or possibly two meetings too? And maybe we could do this via,
That'd be considered,
it's a public meeting.
public
So
meeting.
if you email me, then you're
Have
not
a
meeting.
committee.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's why it's a blind copy, because sometimes conversations start and I avoid that by
Yeah.
blind copying everyone.
No, that's
Yeah.
good.
If you would like, what I could do is I could go through the questions and I could maybe send out to all of you what I think were the highlights. And then you can mark it up. And then have. a
That would be
meeting.
fabulous to have a
Would that be
framework.
fabulous? I can
Yeah.
help you with that.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
Our amazing clerk did have one question for us and I love it. 'Cause she keeps us on the straight and narrow. She's questioning because of if Will should have voted on the highway. Or if you should have stayed in the cap.
They,
That was.
what they're voting on is the transfer of capital from one account to another, so it's not expenditure.
Yeah.
So, except
Okay.
it's gonna be, it's,
Well, I,
yeah, I'm not quite sure.
That motion that made that.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm out of it.
I just
I'm
wanted to
what-
make sure.
What are you wrestling with?
Yeah, anything else?
I'm just, there was so much time between the motion and the vote that I'm confused where we are with the tax, the percentage.
Breccia Street School money would be moved to other capital, primarily the highway capital, which would bring our number to
Negative 3.1%
-3.1 for the final budget.
Okay, I got lost between,
It was a long discussion.
It was a very.
it was, and then it was, then I didn't, I needed a recap at the end, what, okay, this is what this means.
So by doing that, does that affect any of the numbers that we voted on? Or does that just affect
It-
the
It goes
final
on
need to raise
it
money
goes
from
on-
taxes?
Essentially what it does is it moves from a line item that's already existing in our capital budget. Balance. It moves a balance, but what we have to do is in the budget, we have to vote on the appropriation that was put into the capital, we have to reduce that number, correct, Peg, by 203,000.
And it has to go on the warrant,
It's not the way I understood it. I
right?
thought we were,
We talked
the
about,
article, sorry.
But the budget that we currently voted on contains a full number.
Correct, but my understanding is if we increase that, we're increasing the tax. The tax burden, so you put the question out there on the warrant saying. Would you approve moving X amount of dollars from the Friendship Street capital improvement plan to the paving plan? And
Right, but we have to
but then,
reduce,
then the second part of it is you put that dollar figure in the revenue piece as the transfer in to the capital from the general fund.
but I think we have to reduce what we put in as an expenditure in the capital.
When I modeled those to you earlier.
That's right, okay, you're right. So we're leaving the numbers as they are and we only have the question.
As specific, make it as clear and precise as possible.
Sure.
Understood, but it's not, because it won't impact the taxes if it's a question.
That's right. Because it's a transfer and, okay.
So it, on the ballot, you'd have the budget that we have passed, and then this additional number, additional item that if it were to pass, would reduce the tax levy down to a 0% increase this year.
right,
It doesn't,
essentially.
it doesn't affect our budget. It would affect the taxes that would need to be collected.
John.
So what I'm saying is we don't
Expenditures.
have to vote on it.
Right.
As you
If you
said.
increase that, it increases your.
Right, it's not gonna affect the budget we've already approved on last week.
Yeah,
It affects the mill rate.
right, but not.
That's what it
not the
affects.
budget.
No.
So I would recommend a motion to adjourn the budget.
That sounds
and then we'll
appropriate.
Continue with. select board. You guys stay, of course you stay here.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Who's gonna get
You
it?
got it.
Brendan? All right. All those in favor? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One absent. Meeting adjourned.
One meeting is adjourned, now we'll turn on to a select board meeting. Citizens comments. Hey, citizens comments. Select board comment. Bob?
Apologies. I said Julie first. Or you can still.
I don't
Loud about.
Yeah, apologies to Julie first.
Oh, you're okay.
So rude to interject there during my comments.
No, I should have waited.
Well,
Didn't want you to think I was doing something.
I didn't think that. I didn't think that at all. I just have one thing to say, and that is that on April 29th, the WBA, is the Waldeboro Business Association After Hours event. I've never been to this place, is at Kenshin Ranch at 290 Bremen Road from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And a lot of the food's gonna come from Perch. So I encourage folks who are interested and who have business in town or who want to become members of the WABA to go.
No, it's not at the, where is it?
Where is it?
It's at 290 Bremen Road. Kenshin is spelled Kenshin.
The former
Kenshin
chiropractor.
Ranch.
Oh, that's where it is.
Yeah, it's where Deb used to be, Deb Toulouse.
I know it is. Oh, okay, so.
So, yeah, no big things are. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Mike, anything?
Yeah, I'd like to, talk about the broadband issue again a little bit, because I voted against my technical and my financial best interest potentially if this project would have come about. If it's really $35 a month, I'd be saving $85 a month over Starlink. And it would be far better service. I would like to hear more. Can we schedule Consolidated to come in and put on a presentation before the select board?
Maybe not consolidated, but
Well, we can have Ryan from the county come in.
Kevin.
Whoever
Ryan.
is sponsoring this, yeah.
Evan from Lincoln County come in and have a conversation with us. Yes, definitely, because I think that's a big part of this is we have to hear, I mean, you know, I've heard it, Max has heard it, and there was great potential, Ruben's heard it. There's great potential, John, you were in that meeting, you know, we've heard it, but it was one meeting and then, well, we'll know more on this date, and then it happened today. So I think we just have to have Evan come in and give us a chat about it, for sure.
But you raise a valid, may I?
Sure.
You raise a valid point. It is time sensitive. So we gotta figure something out if we want to.
I know, and you know, I would love to get.
We all would.
I would love it,
Yeah.
but is this in any way contingent upon Consolidated getting a certain take rate? I mean,
no.
you know, those are the kind of questions we need to hear before we can reserve money for it. We need those answers. Anyway, go ahead.
I don't know. I'll leave my comments to myself.
I have nothing to add, other than the fact that on May 3rd at 4:30, the Waldeboro Transfer Station Committee, along with the Cushing and Friendship reps, will be here. And they're gonna be talking about options at the transfer station. We sent out, I posted today a flyer that the transfer station committee came up with. They're gonna be handed out at the transfer station and left throughout town. Hopefully at the library and other locations that might want to have them at, so that if people know to come. I would love that there be too many people to fit in this room and we have to go into the EMS bag. Because we're gonna talk trash. We're talking trash. That's it.
I've got one comment I gotta make. I failed to mention that I want to thank the Public Works for their efforts this past weekend. Well, actually, last week, last Thursday and Friday. Very challenging storm. It was a little wet. A lot of trees down. They were negotiating trees, and sometimes they go unnoticed. So the work that they do out there, I just want to thank your crew when you see them. We'll appreciate that. Consent calendar. We'll move to approve the consent calendar.
No, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? New business, ballot clerk appointments. Notice in our packet, you have a letter from our town clerk. Telling us who our ballot clerks are for the upcoming referendum vote.
Those are a pool of people that I can draw from, but I'm not limited to.
Yep.
So if 10 of them say no and I need 5 more, I can ask other individuals, but those are names provided to me by the Republican Party. And it's a state law that it's approved. It's a year before May 1st.
Motion?
I'd move the approval of the list of election clerks as presented.
Second.
All in favor? 11.2, public works sale of surplus items, equipment.
This came up during the budget committee meetings, and what we would need is, and I would ask not only for Public Works, but for all departments that you authorize, us to develop a list of surplus, equipment and put it on the, what we use, govdeals.com, I think it, or .net. .gov, govdeals dot something. And we put our unusable equipment, surplus equipment on, for sale.
And the income from that equipment would go into capital,
Each department's
capital.
capital. Typically, that's what happens. And we can give you a list. It would be great if you gave me a ending date for that, so that every department would have to have their list to me by, say, May 15th. And then, we can present that to you at your second meeting in May, and off we can go, but they would need their descriptions and their pictures to us by May 15th.
I agree with that, any motion?
This question will go to order.
No, I think you're.
There's no benefit.
There's-
Yeah, no benefit.
Make that motion then. And with the date of May 15.
Second. Any more discussion? I think it's just my personal opinion, and if you get stuff laying around, not doing anything for us, we get an opportunity to sell it, why not sell it?
Pennies add up,
Yeah,
the dollars.
Here, here. And pennies add up.
Nickels add up to.
That's middle, yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
I just have a question. Are you going to have the department heads make this decision, or is the town manager also gonna be able to say that vehicle hasn't moved in 3 years, let's get rid of the sentimental reason and let's sell it? I'd like to have some clarification.
John Daigle's gonna be really upset if we sell his pickup truck with the hole in the floors, but yes, I will have a part of that.
There'll be some discussion.
I'm assuming there'll be a lot of discussion.
Thank you.
All in favor?
You would be amazed at what they actually take off some of those vehicles and reuse. They're a very resourceful group.
Now 11.3 warrant articles, John Stone.
So I just have two warrant article items I wanted to go before the select board and then the voters. The first one, hopefully it's not a controversial one, and you were talking about it earlier. Fortunately, three budget committee members stuck around. It's amendments to the TIF program that the town has. I have some copies if you'd just like to see what's changing. Just as a summary, it's just going to amend it. The highlights are just the changes that would go before the voters. I'd have to hold a special public hearing a bit later on in May or April. Changes just boil down to putting the Sylvania and Hoff's house parcels into the TIF district, and then amending the project list to address some projects that we haven't been able to include in the past. So environmental protection projects for sewer and water and other types of utilities. Working on rehabilitation of the Sylvania site so that when there is a master plan, we have a local match that can go towards the project. And I believe I also threw in covering administrative costs. So any of my time or Daryl's time that goes towards this or doing the evaluations for these properties can be covered through this rather than through the general fund. And also 50% for central town upgrades. So the HVAC system, this could be a potential use for the funds. And so this is just going through the standard process. I'd have to hold a required public hearing that's in the newspaper for 2 weeks, and then I'd make the presentation.
And then this would be on the
June warrant.
June warrant.
Yep. Table 3 is the additional projects. Everything else has always been in this TIF program. Bob has a question if you want.
Sorry, Bob.
No, it's okay. On page one, table one,
Mhm.
there's a reference to 48.3 acres. And 0% in original SS value. That's the Sylvania parcel, I assume.
Yes,
Okay.
because it's being.
Was it zero because we didn't tax it?
Correct, because it's being added into the TIF right now, it would be determined based on its value as of April first, which is 0. Because the
Oh.
town owns it.
If you include it in the TIF district and we own it,
Yep,
it's automatically not gonna be taxed. So this anticipates possible future relinquishment of some of the land and then taxing it later, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the anticipation is.
you put in a parcel for 2 reasons if it's town owned. One is the anticipation that it might be sold later down. So we had the 80 grade parcels, and we do have the 80 grade parcels in there. And we have Friendship Street School in there. Those were back in 2019 when we didn't know what was gonna happen to the parcels. Friendship Street School is now under private ownership.
Right.
So the entire value of that parcel helps feed into the TIF program, and it doesn't impact our state valuations or county valuations or anything like that. Now, the second reason, and it's why we have Dutch Neck and Pine Street Landing, is because you can now have some projects that are exclusively only for TIF districts funding that. So environmental cleanup and rehabilitation of structures, that's something that only happens in a TIF district. So without including Sylvania into it, whatever we decide to do with the Hofstas house in the future would have to come from the general fund, but now we're including it in here so that we can use the TIF to use for the Hofstas house.
Great move.
Or, parking if we decide to do some more work at the concrete pad or anything like that.
So this would be a question on the,
On the June warrant.
June warrant.
Motion to put this on the June warrant.
Well, do we want to move to hold a public hearing
Public hearing first, right?
and
You can have the public hearing after the warrant is posted, and that's what I did last year, I believe. I just did
It would be the May 7th meeting.
Yeah.
That's when we'd be holding all the public hearings.
We still have to make approve this to go on the warrant because the warrant's gonna be printed, right?
before then, yeah.
Before that.
So I'd move we approve this for the warrant, the June warrant.
May 7th is
The motion to approve it for the warrant?
Evan, are you still there?
I forgot you've had that in this whole time.
Moved in second. Oh,
Yeah, he's there.
all in favor of this being on the warrant?
Voting, seven, mark your maps.
One abstain.
I think he has his earphones in.
I think he has to vocally say that he's for or against something, but I don't know if he's been doing that.
And what's your next?
The second one is amendments to the land use ordinance. This has quite a few changes in articles 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 15. Those are just some of them have 1-word changes, so don't worry about that. Now, unfortunately, the public hearing I was gonna have was on April 4th. I don't think I have to finish that joke.
It snowed.
Yeah. So we can still have a public hearing for this as well to go over the language in May or April, but I don't know how people are gonna feel being comfortable with that. I mostly am trying to just get LD 2003 related changes done and on the June warrant. It's not that many changes. If I was to refine it down, it's really gonna be 2 or 3 articles that are changing, and that's mostly 6, 10, and 15. 6 is just adding in some language so people are aware of density bonuses and whatnot. And amending the land use matrix to just show accessory dwelling units would be allowed wherever a single family is allowed, which is what we've always allowed. It's just clarifying it. Article 10 just puts in some specific standards so that accessory dwelling units / apartments are in line with what the state has. And we also include the specific standards for an affordable housing development, which is only multifamily projects. And then Article 15 is our definitions. And that's just me using what the state has for definitions, but we don't have it. So I don't know if you want the skimmed down LD 2003 warrant. Everything that the planning board has gone over and had a discussion on, but didn't have a public hearing on. Or not doing anything, which I don't recommend for LD 2003. And again, I will hold a public hearing in May, specifically
So
for,
their choices are do your
we can,
LD 2003 changes
yes,
and then hold all the
everything,
other changes till the November warrant.
right.
Or do them all in one fell swoop in June.
Or we can do it all in one foul swoop. The other changes I had included updating a procedure that Mark and I had for reviewing site plans. So rather than going to just Mark, I give that additional review process for certain things. That's just being updated, so we send out letters to abutters. The other changes included updating our shipping container standards in the ordinance, because we had some calls about that last summer. There was some inclusion to update the subdivision process for the pre-application phase, just because we had some subdivisions recently that some members would like to have updated a bit. And that was about, well, and then Article 7, the general standards, was about an elevator, as well as some changes that Mark would like to have. But again, I don't know. A lot of them are changes I don't know how people are going to feel about going into June. I don't know if there's a specific thing you are all wondering if we tackled that you want me to address.
What's the sense of urgency? Why the June instead of November?
For LD 2003, July 1st is when the state law goes into effect.
I was under the impression that we're mostly in compliance with that already.
And mostly in compliance.
Yeah.
There is some differences. The affordable housing project is the big difference. We don't have that anywhere in the ordinance. So if Volunteers of America was to request another project very similar to what they have and have it fall under affordable housing project, we either go with trying to give them a permit based on our ordinance, and we get someone to say, well, you're not following the state law, so we're going to sue you for not following the state law. Or we give the permit under state law and we get sued for not following our own local ordinance. I'm trying to avoid that part. And then for the accessory dwelling unit, a lot of the changes that I put in there are stuff that Mark already kind of handles, and he doesn't need to be said, but I'm just including the language just for clarity's sake. So that's, and the definitions. Those are really the only three big differences.
And you weren't able to get this reviewed by a legal attorney because they're so backed up. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, this is,
Everybody's doing 2000 LD 2000.
Right.
everyone is doing LT 2003. I myself was asked by maybe 8 different communities to help them with LD 2003. And yeah, that is this, I'm expecting a few to still not be done by July 1st.
So the really imperative one is the LD 2003.
Yes, that's the big one.
Then we can push the other ones off till November.
You can.
We get a chance to maybe.
What's your preference?
What's my,
Personal preference.
I personally would just put everything forward because a lot of it have either been LD 2003 or asked for by someone else. I don't know
You
how,
mean the planning board?
it's
These
either,
have all been through the planning board.
the planning board held their workshop to look over all the language as well. They just did not have the actual required public hearing. That was something they wanted to do before the warrant so that they could make some changes, but storm got in the way. The other option is to do an article by article in the warrant, but I think Pam will hit me if she does.
Can you still have your public hearing before June?
Yeah.
They still, and get it all done?
Just can't change the wording.
I can't change the wording.
Change the wording.
I can't change the wording.
It's basically
Yeah.
adjustment to the ordinance.
Right.
Does what you'd be putting forward in June have that provision about professionals? I'm using a code word here.
Okay. Oh yeah, that does remind me. There are 2 items that were uploaded to the website that showed all the articles and the changes. There were two changes I meant to address. One was on lighting. That was something that the board didn't want to have go forward, so if anyone goes to the town website, this would just remove having Mark review the standards for lighting impacts on neighboring properties. So that's just not, that's not going for changes or anything. It's staying as is. And then the other one was for massage therapy offices. That was something that was asked for quite some time ago, and I'm 50-50 on that one because it's asking about putting licenses in public space. Personally, I think that's more of a general standard that could apply to others, but I also don't know how Mark feels about that one. I wouldn't have it, to be honest.
So what exactly are we voting on tonight? I mean, if those are included on, are those two things included on what you're putting on the table tonight?
The lighting and the massage therapy office standards, I'm not.
They're off the table.
They're off the table.
Okay.
They were. But there are some corrections to shipping containers.
Yep.
The matrix has some uses that are either allowed or not allowed in districts based on past year comments. And then LD 2003 changes, pretty much.
Sorry, one more question. Sorry.
Good.
So you are going to address the CEO and the planner roles in November.
So the way that our ordinance is currently written is that there's 3 levels of review. There's the
Right.
code enforcement officer review. There's the CP review, where it's myself and the code enforcement officer working together on a site plan review. And then there's a third one that is the planning board review. That CP review was always meant to be a gray area, because the CEO was meant to be very quick review, like single family homes or shoreland zone related work. The CP review was the planning board review was the bigger request, the big items like an 80 grade project or something going on in the industrial park. The CP review was meant as a gray area where Mark and I are looking at it and seeing if it is a big review that needs that public hearing process, or if it's a smaller project that could be reviewed very quickly, like a change of use, for example, or an office space on Route 1. Probably doesn't need to go to the planning board every time. The change that I have right now would just make it so the CP review still has to send out a butter notices, which wasn't in the last edition we had. What you're asking for, Bob, is that the change you suggested, or what change were you
take what
talking
I
about?
Suggested off the table. I'm just, you had conversations about getting yourself and Mark involved more as a team.
Right.
And that's what I'm guessing that is not in what would go on the June warrant.
No.
Okay,
What-
that would go in the November.
That's something I think would have to have a lot of discussions with the planning board, because
Okay.
I'm
So you're not touching that.
I'm not touching
Got
that. I'm focusing on one
Thank you.
massive ordinance overhaul at a time.
Okay. No, I hear you.
But the minimum LD 2003 is what I'm looking for. Maybe the shipping containers, because that was something that the select board brought up as a big issue a while ago too.
So the motion would be to put what Max has put on the table for tonight's meeting on the June warrant,
And hold it. here
and then
prior to
and hold a hearing in May, and then do the rest of it for the November. Does that make sense?
So which items would you want to go before the town in June? Is it just LD 2003 and shipping containers, or
Definitely.
and the definitions? Yeah. Okay.
That's the motion.
Did we get a second? Anyone second?
I'll say.
All in favor?
All right. And then I know this isn't a warrant article, but I don't know if the EMS grants were mentioned earlier.
Well, we're not done the warrant articles yet.
I didn't realize that.
Sorry. Because we're on warrant articles and we need to know tonight. Do you want, obviously, we're going to have a presentation from
Evan,
Evan,
Evan at the county. Do we want to even put any question on for the broadband? There's two more outstanding items, broadband and Hofstas House. Do you want to even put questions on the June ballot for that? Or do you want to wait and potentially do a special? I mean, I guess we found out that you can't wait for broadband. So if you want the question on, you're gonna have to put it on the June ballot.
we could do a special, but
It would be after,
it would be kind of hokey and kind of,
Especially the broadband, I think it should be on the warrant.
I do, I agree.
okay, so you want the broadband question on the warrant.
Yep.
And how do you wanna,
Well, the only options really are to pull it out of the TIF.
well, you can't pull it because there's not enough money in it.
No, I'm just saying you'd have to have three sources, the TIF
It would be TIF,
and
fund balance.
fund balance. And I guess that's it. We have two possible sources.
Or you have the borrowing and the payback from the TIF.
Yeah. I don't know what interest rates are gonna be like, but
Do we have a firm figure for what our share is going
Yes.
to be?
$316,000.
You're looking at a 5.39% interest rate. I'm going off what we got when we obtained interest rates for some of the other purchases that I provided during the budget meetings. I mean, you can have a question and break it down into ABC, I guess.
Is it the county that's making this so damned time sensitive? Who is,
No,
why is
so
this?
the time sensitivity became, we didn't participate in this from the ground floor. It was offered to us at a late date.
Yeah, if I can just, so one of the things that Evan noted was that when having these discussions was consolidated, this was a lot more of the central and western Lincoln County towns and Woolwich. I forgot Woolwich was in that group. Waldeboro was kind of a last minute addition that he kind of pushed for so that all of Lincoln County could be part of this in a way. That's why unfortunately we were kind of included at last minute. So in terms of the time sensitivity, the application is due in September, on September 1st. And having the application pulled together with all this information and the grants and the match, yeah, we need to have that by July 1st at that point. So we have at least a 2-month window to actually put everything together.
Yeah, it wasn't, it really was a last minute item.
And trust me, I have a more last minute item I will talk to you later about.
As far as the question go, we're talking about the warrant article.
Right.
We have to put a dollar value on it.
Which we know is 316. It's just a matter of how you fund it. We can ask that it be funded partially from the TIF and fund balance. If you borrow, it becomes a more complicated question.
And at this point in time, it may not even get approved by the voters. We don't know that yet.
We don't,
We don't know that until June.
we do not know that.
But it
Well,
would
what
be
you
what-
could do is see if they approve it, the expenditure, and then have a special to determine how you want to fund it. That would give you a level of support. I know it sounds a little odd, but then you'd have to have a special between then and July 1st to
Talk
decide
about how you're gonna pay for it.
to how you're going to pay for it.
Because you only have one meeting between June 11th and July 1st. You need a,
Well, I mean, technically, they could call a special anytime.
We have to advertise, that's the only kicker.
Right, but we know now, like, we'd be able to,
Okay, I see.
to plan
All right.
ahead.
I'll be quiet.
It's complicated. But you get the answer if people are, if it's a hot button item for people and if they wanted to use the money.
My preference would be to use fund balance, because we've got that. Even 90 days with the new budget, we still got 90 days of flexibility in there, and it's about $170,000 we have to pull out of fund balance. Because we've got 130 sitting in the TIF. Assuming none of it's committed.
No, that was the uncommitted.
It's uncommitted.
That's uncommitted. Okay, so we have 130 there. Is it possible we might have more than that because taxes are due on May 15th?
No,
It's done.
we would, the idea that we toyed around with this afternoon, Max and I, was that if we could push it till the,
Next fiscal year.
to the, not the next fiscal year, but to the November warrant, was then we would know what we have in the TIF for this coming tax year.
Exactly.
But it's
Can't do that.
July first.
Yeah.
So the funds have to be committed by July first, correct, Max?
I can double check that with them.
You're gonna need a vote either way. At least this gives you,
I'd rather take fund balance and pay a percentage to some bond bank somewhere. I mean, in the long run, it's better for our taxpayers to do it that way.
it'll. It gets you the answer, whether people are going to support it or not.
Yep.
But. In that meantime, we have to have Evan here and the word has to get out to the public that. You know, this is an option. The pros and the cons, I guess.
I think the other part is that I don't know if the wording can include it, but it's on the condition that the county does get this grant.
Right.
I mean, we could commit the 300 from this and don't have to actually get the loan or borrowing or whatever we end up doing, unless we know that the county actually got the grant. We're just saying we will do it if the county gets the grant.
So they haven't gotten the grant.
It has to be applied for in the state grant, the big one. Is September 1st. That's when we put in the application, but we have to say that the match is here.
No, I understand that, but. It would be approved is the word.
Yes.
Do you know what the approval timeline is from September 1st? Is it 6 months, 2 months?
I think that Evan can answer that.
Evan would have to answer the
You want
technical.
Evan in the room?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's longer, then well, you got some time to raise the money.
But we still have to ask the question.
Yeah.
Okay,
We have to have them vote, this a vote on that, put that on the question.
you have to vote that we're gonna put that on the ballot. On the,
I'd move we put it on the ballot, subject to review by our attorney.
and utilizing fund balance.
Utilizing fund balance and the available TIF monies.
Yeah, he's gonna have to craft that.
In a second.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Yeah.
we could do an and or
Is that thing
bonding
still on?
and or bonding
Yeah.
if the select
Yeah,
board
there.
deems that to be
He is,
advisable.
he had to go vote.
We could add an and or onto that motion. Up to the select board's discretion as to whether we want to bond it, part of it, or all of it.
Well, you
So we
can't,
have three
you
options.
can't, if you're going to ask for permission to bond. We have to have an amount. And
You're right.
And we have to have the bond attorney do an amortization schedule. That has to
Well,
be-
if we're gonna bond it, we might as well do the whole thing as a bond,
Right,
but could that be in there as an and or up to the select board's discretion?
But then we're gonna have to do an amortization schedule.
Yes, we would.
That's up to you guys.
Guess it's better to keep it simple.
It's really, I mean, that is an option, but I'm just saying, you're gonna have to. His advice would be. Then bond the full amount and ask. For the worst case scenario.
I'd still make the motion to fund it from the general fund and from the TIF. That's my motion.
Fund balance.
Fund balance. Yes, thank you.
Need a second? Being second, any other discussion?
Is there? I'm still concerned about. The impact on taxes. This money won't affect. This is money in our accounts now.
Yeah, it won't affect the tax.
It
Won't affect the taxes.
won't affect
Won't affect the mill rate.
tax rates at all.
Well,
Not this year.
right, it reduces what your available fund balance would be for next year.
Yeah. Doesn't affect this year's budget. This is to get it on the ballot so we can get it.
This gets it before the public. If you want it to be really simple. You ask the question, is this something you want to see taxpayer money go to fund?
I wouldn't want to put it that way.
I know, but I understand you don't want to put it that
No, and
way.
there's a reason for that, because we don't
We
know.
don't know what the price is.
Well, you know what the
No,
price
we
is.
don't know.
316, but
You-
we don't know.
But you don't know whether you're using fund balance or TIF. Or if you'd be financing it. That's what I was saying. You could then, or you could ask, do you support this? And yeah, it's complicated when it's a last minute thing.
Motion on the floor in a second. Favor? Against?
I'm gonna abstain because I can't figure out whether it's a good deal or not, and I'm gonna abstain.
We won't know that till it's voted on. Well, we have the
We
hearing.
don't even know whether it's gonna be funded, right?
We have the hearing.
At this point, it's a grant application, right?
So clarification on the motion, just so I have it right, is that your motion is to access the fund balance and TIF.
To fund it, yes.
Subject to grant approval, you know. And the attorney reviewing the language of the warrant.
What was the other thing you want to put on the warrant?
Well, so.
Yeah.
So I have, here's my issue. Hofstede's house. We have this open issue and the Sylvania committee met. 2 weeks ago. They were gonna have recommendations for us. We really don't have an amount of what this could potentially cost. I am hesitant, as is our bond attorney. If I'm talking about, although we have a potential gift for the house, there is an amount of money that would have to be raised, and how that would be raised through grants, donations, whatever that number is, I don't have the ability to put a firm number on that and give it to the public. So I'm hesitant to put, I just, it's not the right time to put it on the warrant. But I think the Sylvania committee, after their last meeting, felt, because it was me, said, well, if we do X, Y, and Z, we can get it on the June warrant, knowing that it was a short time frame. And since that time, we can't nail down prices, and I want to make sure that we're doing it accurately and that we have all of our ducks in a row and that there's no duck left behind. So the only other thing I could come up with is, do you want to put a generic question on the June warrant to see if people even have an interest in preserving the house without a number on it, which then could confuse people. I want to make sure you guys are well informed as to what we should or shouldn't put on the warrant, or should we wait till we have good numbers and can proceed? Or do you even want to do like a pulse of the town and do a, the word escaped me. Non-binding question, just to gauge if people would like to try to save the house, knowing that there will be some type of town expense in the future, potentially. I just want to know.
I've said it before and I'll say it again and I'll say it for the record. We've been down this road before. I appreciate an offer to have a gift to help us out with this house. In the last summer, we had a select board meeting. We said, let's put out an RFP to see who wants to purchase, anyone wants to purchase and we'll move the house. If not, we're gonna tear it down. It was voted on by the select board. We're gonna keep kicking this can down the road, just like we did with the building on the hill. And I won't mention the name. It sat around here for several years, sitting on the hill. Yeah, we got some enjoyment out of it. We got to have a haunted house in it a few times. We also spent some money on that building. Where is it now? It's in a landfill somewhere. So that's my feelings. Let's stop kicking the can. Unless the money's here right now. Let's get rid of it. Anyone else?
Well, I don't know whether that's a motion or not, but certainly.
No, it's not a motion. That's
Yeah.
the motion was made back in the summertime on what we do with the house.
I'm incredibly frustrated because I've been trying to save that house, and the town has needs. And it's gonna have needs for space. We already own it. The place is an eyesore right now. It has, but it has value. I've been trying to save that house for 5 or 6 years, and I'm extremely frustrated by this whole process right now. And I said to my wife, only half in joke, that I wish it would get struck by lightning at this point. I can't see any virtue to putting a warrant for the Huff's house for this next election. I can't see it.
I agree.
No point.
That doesn't preclude further conversations on the part of the committee or the town, but it is too early to put something out there. Don't have anything to.
But my point is, we've already discussed this late last summer on what the options are. We agreed that if we didn't get someone to buy it by January 31st, we're gonna tear it down.
I agree, but in the meantime, the facts changed. And that's what's kind of pushed this conversation forward. You're right, John.
Facts changed. We got a gift to.
We
help-
got an
help.
offer of a gift to help save.
And I
house.
appreciate that, but that gift is not gonna
No,
fix this house.
you're right. But we also talked about other uses that impinge on space the town might need. And I'm not advocating one way or the other at this point. I'm just agreeing with Julie that we don't have the facts available to us to put it on the warrant. So
If we're going to put a number out there to the public,
we can't.
we have to have that number that we are confident in put out there.
Yep.
And I think it's fair to the potential donor that they know that number too. I just think we need to have the numbers, and
Well, I think
When can we have the number?
well, yeah, that's the point.
that's the point. We need more work for us.
So does the select board instruct the town manager to get the numbers? To get, I guess, to get a definition of what we want done.
So I think the Sylvania Committee is willing to give a idea of what they believe should be in that building. That if they believe what should be in that building and the select board agrees with it, then that sort of leads into, like, we don't have a design, you know, we had a quote for basically a historic renovation that may not be accurate as far as if you're going to make that a public building, what has to go in there as far as requirements. So I think we need to know the number, and we need to get to that number. And yes, we need time for that.
So we
That's
need,
not gonna
we
be
need
something-
an engineer to create an estimate or an architect to create an estimate,
You would need somebody to create an estimate, yes.
a stamped individual.
Who's paying for that?
Well,
That was my question.
that's. But that's where we're at. I mean, I think if we're going to do that, you're going to have to do that.
We already have Pine Tree, I think it's Pine Tree,
It's, yeah,
Uh,
Pine Tree is already.
looking at the rest of the site. Would they take a change order, increasing their scope to do that?
I don't know I don't know, I mean, he could do the infrastructure, but I don't think he could do the building.
I asked them if they had an architect on staff. and
Right,
that's-
you did ask.
No, they don't.
They don't.
So what I'm hearing is it's not going to make the June warrant. I think this is something we can discuss at the next meeting further, but as far as the warrant discussion goes, this isn't.
Yes, yes. It's undergoing demolition by neglect again, and for another at least 6 months.
Old business.
We're not. We don't have any old business. But Marcus, Mac has one good thing for you. One good thing for you.
EMS is applying to the Stephen Tabitha King Foundation. They are asking for $50,000 for some new stair chair equipment that they have in their ambulance services. Tonight, they're just asking for a letter of support from the select board to apply for it. The town's applied for the Stephen Tabitha King Foundation in the past for fire department equipment, as well as addressing the invasive species over at the town forest. That's pretty much the short of that grant.
So I move we apply to the King Foundation for grant to support the EMS.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
And I do have another grant very quickly. So the congressional directed spending is now available. That was announced literally last Wednesday.
I'm
And
sorry, what was announced?
the congressionally directed spending. It's the same grant opportunity that we used to help with, that we got to help with the site work over here on Depot
Okay,
Street.
okay.
Collins and King have announced their deadlines. Senator Collins's deadline to have applications in is April 15th. And Senator King's is April 23rd. The short is that I'd like to just apply for the EMS department for an ambulance replacement. It falls under the rural health category. And that's the short of it. I know we could apply for the community center or Sylvania, but I don't have any figures for those. I don't feel confident with that. I feel a little bit more confident applying for an ambulance.
Because we know what that figure is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the slap dunk. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Does not mean that we love any other department
Yeah.
any more or less,
No.
it just means we actually have a figure to go with,
No.
and it falls under
And-
one of the categories that we think we're strong in.
And Derek said his ambulances would be due for replacement in sometime around the time when we get the grant funding. And also I actually saw him today, so that's the other part.
Agenda items for the next. Well, we need to talk about broadband.
Yeah, so we will try to get Evan,
Yeah.
Hey, good job.
I know. It's just been a long week. Hofstas house,
Yes. We're not gonna have a meeting until of the Sylvania Committee for a while. It's usually around the first Monday of next month,
you
so,
wanna wait and do that?
well, we won't have anything new to report unless we schedule another Sylvania meeting.
Okay,
Shouldn't we talk about it? We'll have a meeting before then, right?
we have a meeting, yeah.
Shouldn't we talk about it so we can give them guidance, what direction? we'll
Okay,
go?
that's,
Well,
I'm.
Because they don't give us direction, we give them direction.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we just, I want to get into it. We'll talk about it the next meeting. Anything else on for next meeting?
Yeah. Max.
Nothing.
I don't think I'll be here.
Do that.
Find you that would be.
We got a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Don't leave without signing, otherwise I get in trouble from Pam. Very mean to me.